Good evening, my friends. It is still April 25th, 2024. I'm going to continue with Chapter 1, and I'm going to conclude Chapter 1 of my UAP book, my unpublished book, which will probably never get published. So if you're a publisher out there, contact me. DEEJIN25@yahoo.com. Serious inquiries only, okay? And I got a little feedback from my friend Jose and his lady Ingrid, and he said they liked the two videos I put up so far. I always like positive encouragement. Don't need negativity, and if you are rude on my comment sections, if you curse people out, if you can attack ideas but not people, or if I simply don't like you, I will block you. I don't have room for negativity in my life, okay? So let's get on with the meat and potatoes of Chapter 1 and what it's all about. So this book is not an expose, an investigation, a diatribe, a debate, an expose, or unquestioning support or debunking of any one theory. Okay? I'm not necessarily wedded to any idea that this is an extraterrestrial thing. This is extra dimensional. It's all a hoax. I am not 100% for or against anything. I have my leanings and tendencies because I like to think about things. I like to investigate things. I believe in both the scientific method and the human heart, symbolic heart, not the organ, and intuition and, inspiration. So this book is designed to be a study guide, an inspiration, a thought experiment, and I want it to be both informational and entertaining. I try to exclude anything that has no factual basis, no evidence, and it just comes from one particular source. If there is anything in this book which, excuse me, Japanese green tea with barley, good for you. If something, like Whitley Strieber in his book Communion talks about all these experiences he had with the Greys, and at different times he said, no, it's real, no, I made it up, but it's one person, right? The book Fire in the Sky, the Travis Walton story, again, one person. Nobody went up there with him if he went anywhere. So if something like that shows up, I state it. I say, this is just a personal statement, right? So the book leans heavily more towards things like multi-sensor data, like the Tic Tac incident and related incidents. You have more than one military person, more than one camera, more than one radar, more than one infrared, and on top of that, data we don't have access to, but we know exists because we know that at that time, aircraft carrier task forces are tracked by GPS, which means satellites track them. And they probably also have visual track, as well as radar and infrared and who knows what else. We know that there's sonar involved, but we don't get access to that data. So things like that get weighed heavily by me, right? An incident like Roswell, we have a lot of personal anecdotes, and we have, theories debunking it, and I don't focus so much on Roswell because to me, that is not as robust and as fascinating as multi-sensor, multi-people, combined data, all right? I'm tilted towards that. That's my bias, but it's a bias towards reality. I like something called PEARL. It's an acronym: physical evidence and reasoned logic. If I'm going to put my name on something, put my signature, raise my right hand on something, I like to have that behind me. Not just, there's a guy, Bashar, right? He puts a lot of videos and he's very entertaining, and I think he was also a writer for sci-fi. But he claims to be channeling this entity or a cluster of entities from somewhere out in the stars, and It's all very entertaining, but I wouldn't bet 2 cents on any of that information. I literally watch it like it's a fantasy or sci-fi series, right? But I don't take it seriously, but I just happen to find them funny. On the other hand, when you talk about a lot of the incidents in Europe in the 50s and 60s and 70s that were tracked by radar and visually and so on, and when you talk about the Japan Airlines incident over Alaska, I mean, that had both ground and air personnel tracking it. And Japan Airlines has some of the most well trained professional pilots out there, or they did at the time. To the point where Michio Kaku, who has a foot in the Western scientific world and knowledge of what's going on in Japan, says that is some incredibly strong, robust evidence. Okay? So I try to lean towards that, and where we encounter something like detailed accounts of what the gray aliens culture is, and what's happening right now on Zeta Reticuli, I will tell you, this is only one person's opinion. There's not a shred of evidence, or there's very tiny amount of evidence, and that's to maintain journalistic integrity. If this was an academic setting, I would call it academic integrity, right? I don't want to purposely be wrong, and I don't want to purposely give something a lot of weight as actual fact when there's very little evidence for it. That doesn't appeal to me. All right. On top of this, I try to balance fact and fun, and I also like to present alternate theories. And mostly that's just to cover all the bases, right? I will even throw in a null hypothesis. If you're not familiar with null hypothesis, whenever you publish a scientific paper, a PhD or master's thesis, and so on, you have to present what's called a null hypothesis, which is how could your results not prove your theory? Because a thesis sets out to prove a theory based on research. This is not quite a thesis because I'm not setting out to prove a particular theory or disprove something. I'm presenting as many theories as I can and trying to grade them according to levels of evidence and credibility, right? But I try to present a null hypothesis where appropriate. Like, for example, you have something called the extraterrestrial hypothesis, which is these things have some extraterrestrial origin, whether they're traveling directly from someplace or whether they got here a long time ago, maybe even thousands or millions of years ago, and have integrated themselves into our local environment. Those are two theories. That's interesting, fascinating, and I present those cases. Another alternate theory is that they could be extra dimensional in nature and not necessarily indigenous to our universe. Another possibility is that they're a form of crypto civilization, a hidden civilization that may even have human origins, or may go back to the time of the dinosaurs, before that asteroid hit and changed life on this planet. Maybe there was some form of civilization on this planet or in this solar system. I try to present different views that have some form of credibility and some form of logic and basis in scientific fact and evidence. I don't dwell much on things like, well, these could be demons or angels, because that's not within the purview of this book. Find another book. They're out there. So let's talk about the capabilities of the UFO UAP. I covered it in an earlier video, but we do need to understand that these things are confirmed and recorded by instrumentation and by eyewitness, by radar, by camera, by infrared, by eyes, and even auditory information, that they move incredibly fast, okay? They start and stop suddenly. Their speeds, I mean, let's talk about some of their speeds here. I mean, they've been known to go from subsonic to Mach 12, possibly even Mach 30. Understand that at Mach 16, in about a minute, a human being dies, and of course, aircraft start to actually experience serious structural stress at Mach 6. I think, you have the MiG 25 Foxbat, an old Russian design, and other craft that can do some combat maneuvers at Mach 5, but they have a huge turn radius, right? Whereas these things have been known to exhibit right handed turns at speed, something we cannot do. If you're moving at Mach 10, you're making sudden turns and sudden stops and then accelerating from zero to that speed. Um, Rivets begin to work their way loose, airplane structures begin to fail, fuel systems begin to fail, electronics, and human beings definitely undergo distress. Right, so I like to say that call these techno signatures, right? This is a concept that's relatively new, and I think a lot of UFO, UAP people have actually not updated to this information, but in SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, if we were to receive an unambiguous radar signal from a star system that had mathematical structure, repetition, maybe audio-visual information, that would be a technosignature. If spacecraft drifted into our solar system and it, had metallic structure and geometric shape and an interior section, even if there was no life in it, even if it was damaged, we would know that's a technosignature. That's a sign that not only intelligence made it, but it was an advanced technological intelligence, and you could actually learn about the technological level of a society by looking at their artifacts. So this pen, for example, we know, well, they had access to petrochemicals, and this is made of graphite. And, even if we didn't know that it was a writing pen, we're like, it's well engineered. They understood the concepts of geometry and proportion. It, appears to have been very precisely made, so this implies some sort of mechanization. If you look at a car from the 1950s and then you look at the advanced cars that we have now, especially the high-end ones, you would know that these artifacts come from cultures and societies that have different technological levels, right? Simply watching a meal being eaten. Watch a meal being eaten in the Middle Ages, cooked over a fire, eaten with hands and knives and forks. Then watch a modern dinner where part of the meal is cooked on a microwave and on an oven, an electric oven, and you're like, wow, there's a lot of technology involved in this. And even looking at packaging, me bringing in a dead animal, skinning it, gutting it, and cooking it on the fire shows one level of technological activity. Me bringing in, a package of pre-made cake mix and a salmon wrapped in plastic and labeled, and then, vegetables that have already been pre-cut, right? Something else. Looking at a refrigerator and the different varieties of food, you can tell something about the economy of a person, of a culture where a person can have a refrigerator containing all these items from different parts of the world, as opposed to someone in the Middle Ages where only a few things were imported and a lot was sourced locally, right? So, technosignatures. These things are technosignatures. Could they be from extraterrestrial origin, extra-dimensional? Possibly. Could they be from a hidden civilization? That's a theory I get into, and what that could be, or support and non-support for that idea. I think it's something that needs to be explored. And could it be artificial in nature, like an AI? All right. So, but they are techno signatures, and I don't think very many of these things have anything resembling a supernatural origin. Supernatural implies things like hauntings, visions. I have had experiences that I could label as supernatural. I put these in a different category, right? I have heard, but these are all eyewitness accounts, no camera footage, nothing, of people saying I was abducted by an alien. One came through my wall, and one landed, and I talked to this one or this group. Yes, and they talk about telepathic communication and levitating through walls and all this thing. And it's all fine and well, but I mean, where's the evidence? If I have only the word of one person that said they experienced something, I've read tales where someone said they were in a house and their husband was there, or their wife, and or they were kids and their parents and siblings were in the house, and all this thing happened to them and no one else in the house saw, or they were woken up and they were kind of neuralized. And again, you can't prove it. You may not be able to disprove some aspects of the story, but the absolute lack of evidence and maybe more outrageous claims puts that in the category of supernatural, and I have to investigate that differently. If I want to write a book about the supernatural, I'd have to approach it in a completely different manner. I'm trying to stay within the scientific method and pearl physical evidence and reasoned logic. Are you guys following me so far? Okay. So, what does that mean? Right? What I'm investigating appears to be real and be grounded in physical reality, but with unusual characteristics, what they like to call high strangeness, which is why I think it's worth investigating. So these things interact with observation. That has happened time and time again. The Tic Tac incident, there's something Commander Fravor said where he was talking to on the radio with other aircraft in his squadron, because no aircraft is sent up there by itself. That's not how expensive, dangerous fighter planes are used. They're never sent up one at a time. That's insanity, right? Stated that during the course of monitoring the flight of this thing, he said, I'm going to go to the our rally point. They have predetermined points, and they navigate, using the navigation systems on the craft and on the ships to determine where they're going to go. I mean, it's like a grid square, all right? It's a given coordinate. And the other craft was at or near the rally point, and all of a sudden he got a report, it's there. It's waiting for you at the rally point, which implies that not only did this thing pick up his communication and understand it in English, but that it had active monitoring of the electromagnetic spectrum and possibly even his particular radio frequencies, which again is a national security hazard. These are secure lines. Joe Blow off the street and Jane Doe off the street isn't supposed to know and monitor these radio signals, okay? So they appear to violate known physical laws, but I would say more like they appear to surpass our understanding of material science. So you talk about things traveling at a high speed and stopping suddenly, traveling at a high speed and making a right-hand turn without any delay, without any curve. And that sounds impossible, but it's not technically impossible. It's just way beyond our material science and our technological capacity. If we had a way of generating that much power and instantly changing its direction. And we had materials that could withstand those stresses and make those stops. And we had a way of insulating any person inside from damage. It's not a violation of physical law, it's just a much higher level of technological and material science, right? So, for example, at one point, our material science was stone, wood, leather, later on glue, and then later on metal, right? So, one of the most advanced weapons out there in terms of handheld weapons was a spear. It was a wooden shaft and a stone tip, later a metal tip. At first, the stone tip was glued on and lashed on with leather or sinew. Later on, it was bolted in, right? That was high tech for thousands of years. And then projectile weapons, the bow and arrow was one of the most advanced things we got, right? I'm going to continue this because we've hit the 20-minute mark, and I feel like I want to be able to not rush, and I want to have a manageable download time. So that was Chapter 1, Part 1, and we're going to continue on this discussion and talk about what may be inside these vehicles and some other capabilities and characteristics they have. So let's see you on the next video.